Right. Okay. Thanks for coming, everyone. This is the September 2022 meetup of WordPress Naperville meetup. And today we are doing a tour of CPanel. And Ken is going to be doing a live demo of the two main features of CPanel that we're going to look at today, the file manager and Phpmyadmin, the database interface, and show us a few tricks for things you can do when your site gets broken or hacked and you need to actually do something at the server level to sort it out, and also a simple small site migration without plugins. So Ken, take it away. You should be able to share your screen.
Okay, will do. Host disabled participants. I'm not co-host. Okay. That's top two. There we go. Okay, so I'm starting off. This is going to be a migration of a website from GoDaddy to SiteGround. So the first thing I did is sign on GoDaddy. So just got a basic, this is the front end. I'll just go over to this page. This is actually the page we're on. And I don't know if anybody uses GoDaddy here, but it does have a pretty typical CPanel. So I'm going down to the bottom of the My Products and just simply going to the web host manage all. From there, GoDaddy is not super fast, so hopefully it won't take long between screens. Go, obviously, CPanel. Now there are a few things right up here. We could jump right up here if we wanted to, but I'm going to go through the longer process so that there's no confusion. Go to CPanel admin. Now, this is what I always thought CPanel was, a bunch of icons and the information for them. You pretty much scroll through, grab what you want, and that's it. And that does seem to be true of a number of hosts. There's quite a bit on here. And when the PHP migration occurs, that will be on here as well. There's a PHP handler. But I don't want to look at some of the other things today, because actually you could spend all day on the various aspects in here. So what we're going to look at is File Manager first, and then Phpmyadmin. File Manager is basically just like the directory on your computer. Pretty much same idea. And the reason that I want to do work in File Manager is that when you're doing work there, you're using the server's resources. So actions on here are fairly fast. Now I've got a site on here. Now, most file managers will either have your sites listed as an item right away under the home, or under public_HTML. In fact, even those that are under the home usually have an aspect of the site under public HTML. So I'm going to expand that. Now this host has a whole bunch of sites. I'm looking at one in particular that I picked that is a small site. And the reason I want a small site is simply so that this migration that I'm going to do later won't hopefully take too long. It takes long enough as it is. So I'm going to expand that one. And these are your typical files for WordPress. And if you take a look at in fact, I have one here if I can find it. Let's see if I can pull that up. This is right off of WordPress.org, database description. And it also shows, actually it doesn't show this. There's another I jumped ahead of myself. This is for later. There is another place you can go to get the standard files that are in WordPress. So I'll jump back to the that screen. Find out where to put it here. There we go. Okay. File Manager. These that begin pretty much WP whatever are your standard files in the home directory. And then you have 3 other primary directories within it, within any WordPress installation. The WP admin, which is of course your administrative functions. WP content, WP includes. WP content is of particular importance because WordPress tries to be very organized and put all of your specific content in WP content. The rest of these are universal for any WordPress site, is the idea. So that gives us the ability, if we're going to play with a site and migrate it, we can just take the WP content folder and move that or copy that and bring that into another host. And that's the first part of actually building a migration site. So if I drill down into WP content, double click on it in this case, we'll see various directories. You may be familiar with obviously themes, plugins. If I click on plugins, you should see a list of the current plugins that are active. Very organized. Navigating around File Manager is pretty easy. You look up top and see it's one of the 2 sets of menus. Up 1 level is just simply back 1 level. So going back up the tree. And you can do some nasty things like delete, but you have a trash bin, so things like that are useful. And one particular useful feature is the upload and download. So I can actually take things on here and grab them and put them on my PC. So I'm going to actually need to do that soon. So I'm going to go ahead while we're in File Manager. I'm going to right click on WP content and I get a submenu, which is similar to what's up here. And I want to compress the WP content because that's basically the guts of the website. I'm going to compress that. I want to use zip. You can use others, but zip is universal. So as I say, it's using the server. So GoDaddy server is going to compress all of this in pretty short order. It added all of these files into the zip. It's already available. So I'll close that information window. And now we have wp-content.zip. Again, I'll right click, or I could just highlight it and go up here, but I used to right clicking. So I will now download this file. And there it goes right to my PC. So actually this is half of a backup. If you download the WP content as a minimum from your website and you download the database, you've got all you need to build the website again, if it came to that. Now, of course, you can obviously back up plenty of other ways, and nobody's probably going to use this for backing up, but it does work. And plus, it has the advantage of now stored on your computer. So I'll let that finish. It's almost done. All right, there we go. So I'll remember that that's on my computer. It's available for later. Now, at this point, I'm about ready to leave File Manager. So I'll ask if anyone has any questions or curiosity about File Manager that they'd like me to drill into a little bit.
You're going to do the cool tricks with renaming things later, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I can't do that yet. So, all right. It is pretty simple. It's basically a tree structure, and you're navigating through the tree. You can actually, if you want to mess around with your site, and of course, some blogs will suggest you do just that. If you want to make changes, I can right click on the WP config and go to edit. And I can really mess around with my site here. This is the basic configuration. It has all of the linking to the database, which is what these defines are all about. And then the authorization keys. So sometimes blogs will suggest you put something in one of the configuration files like this. And they'll tell you right where to put it, usually at the end or right after a particular line. And if you do make a change, be sure not to wipe out anything that's already WordPress. And then when you're done, save changes, and it's saved. And once you save changes, it's live. So if you made a change and you wanted to see if it was effective in your website, just go right to the website. I'm going to close that. Now the website that I picked is, as I say, it's a pretty simple one. This was a wireframe that I set up some months ago for a proposition, basically, for a hotel. And we did go ahead and do the hotel. It looks a little different now than this, but this was a good starting point. I picked it because it's pretty small. It does use Divi, so that's taking up some space, but it's not too bad. So this makes a pretty good and fairly fast migration. It's also one that you have no problem migrating with various tools that are out there, but those tools may choke when you're using them to transfer a really large site. I've had that happen before, and there is a limit to what those tools can handle automatically. So there may be a time where manual migration is particularly useful. So quality in dot, I think somebody is coming in. qualityin.dmrvirtual.com is the site we're going to be taking this from. Now I'm going to right off the bat break a few rules. If I want to make this as easy as possible, I would go into this site, make sure everything's up to date, and this should really be HTTPS, so it's not even secure. Now it looks like I need to admit someone here. Hold on, got that. Okay, move this down out of the way of my Zoom menu. All right, let's go back to File Manager. Now I've already got my WP content. I'm going to get rid of that on File Manager so I'm not trashing things up here, because that doesn't belong in this directory. And if you do use File Manager and you wind up storing some things on any part of this directory, you're taking up part of your quota space. So they do penalize you for that if they don't let you get away scot-free. Otherwise, you could download a whole bunch of files on here and use it for storage. And they know better than to let you do that. So that's File Manager on GoDaddy. Now let's take a look and see how it changes if I go to another host. I'm going to SiteGround now. I'm on SiteGround. I'll go at the beginning here and go to home. I've already logged on. I have a few websites on here. And what I'm going to do to migrate is I'm not going to buy another URL. You could certainly do that. I'm not going to use the same URL, because if I did that, then we have to change the DNS pointers to point to the new site. that could take time to propagate through the World Wide Web, who is registry, ICANN registry, and we would be waiting too long to make a good demo. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm picking one of these using reasons for faith, coming in here. I know I have some workspace here, so I'm just going to add a new work area, a new subdomain onto this main domain. That'll be where I'll migrate to. So on SiteGround, everything is through, you pick a website, you pick a domain that's already registered with SiteGround or one of theirs, and you go to Site Tools. That's what I did here, was go back one stage, maybe. So Site Tools. That is their version of CPanel. So I don't have those nice icons lined up. Instead, I have to navigate through the various pieces here, all the main menus. And they are nice enough to put File Manager right at the top. So I'm going to click on that. And here we go. You can see this File Manager looks a little different. Now, Reasons for Faith is my main domain, but there's no website there. If I look over here, there's nothing there. But it does have a public HTML directory. So if I go there, now we have under that, we have all of the pieces of the website. So their layout is a little different. You kind of have to do it host by host. You have to know where they put their stuff. And generally, if you go into File Manager, you can find it pretty readily. Now, I don't yet have a target domain set up, so I'm going to go to Domains, and I'm going to add what they call a subdomain to my main domain. In other words, reasonsforfaith.com is the domain. I'm going to throw a prefix on there, which pretty much all your hosts, if they're multi-site hosts, allowing you to do more than one website, will allow you to do this. So I'm going to, I've already used quality 2 for my testing, so I'm going to use quality 3. It's not 30. Okay, so quality3.reasonsforfaith.com, create. It goes in very quickly, and there it is. Now in the run through, I went to right here to install application, and we had a strange error. So I'm going to try it again, but if we have an error, the other way to go into it, obviously, is the normal way. We just go in, SiteGrounds, install and manage, and install it to this new subdomain. And I'm going to install application. Hopefully it won't give me any errors. Now my application is WordPress. My domain is quality 3. No change. I don't want to change anything I don't have to. So installation path is the main folder. I'm going to set up a new username like that. So put that in and password. I'm just going to do this so I can see it. And that's not the password I want. I'm just going to say test password. I used this yesterday. It worked fine. Pretty lousy password, but who cares? I don't really need any extras like WordPress starter. I'm just doing the basics. So test password $, I need to remember that. Jim had a question.
Oh, I was just curious, do you know what package SiteGround is using? Because it's, obviously not CPanel, so.
Well, it is and it isn't. That's the thing about CPanel. Everybody's got their own flavor. The quick and dirty way is what GoDaddy did, just throw them all up there. And that's, I think that's the
but if you look at the apps, you can see that the apps themselves are different, and there are quite a few cPanel competitors that provide the same services. They're just doing it their own way, and that includes a number. There are some open source. SiteGround created their own a
Hmm.
couple of years ago. Yeah, I'm always leery of the hosting companies that kind of roll their own.
Well, they think they're making it easier.
Well,
for-
no, they're saving money because cPanel's not free.
That's the point. Okay. Well, so if you are forced to do what you have to do at SiteGround, you have to just go looking through their menu in Site Tools and find the elements that you want. Same elements, but maybe in different places. So I need to give this thing an email. I'll just pick a junk one. That's one I use for doing on all the websites that want an email that I don't care about. Okay, now let's do the install. A nice thing about this is I'm creating a blank website that I don't care if I blow it away later. It's just a test. But what I'm doing, there's method to my madness here, is I've created this website and it's just a generic website. But what I plan on doing is taking the WP content in the database and putting them here, letting SiteGround do the work of installing WordPress, registering WordPress in its site tools. So basically it knows the site is there, it knows how to hook up to it, everything's in place, and then I'm just going to do surgery on it and do some organ transplants, basically. So now that I've got the site here, I'll go to take a look at it. Should be nothing really extravagant. There we are, typical front end, visit the site, and it's giving us the bird. So, there we go. So now we know what we're looking at, and what I plan on doing is turning the bird into a hotel. So that's the goal. So right now I have the site, the generic site, ready to go. And so I'm going to go in and go ahead and do the first step, which is go back into my file manager. Make sure I'm in the right one here. I'm not. I want to, in fact, it should show up here. I may have to change it on SiteGround. Let's see. There we are. I had to refresh. I noticed that about SiteGround is that some of this stuff is cached. They really love caching, and sometimes you think you've got something and you can't find it because you have to refresh or else you won't see it. So refreshed, public HTML, that up, typical files, as you'd expect. Now, WP content is the organ that I'm going to transplant. So I'm going to get rid of theirs. Delete it, put it on a heart-lung machine because it just cut out all of its identity here. Okay, now I have a replacement. And so what I want to do is come up here. Again, it's their file manager. I don't know if this is a little non-standard, if maybe it's cheaper, I don't know, but the icons are a little different here than they were on GoDaddy. So I've got file and folder upload over here. I've got my WP content file, zip file. So I'm going to upload that. And there she is. Start that running. And here's our nice accelerator bar on the bottom showing us using server speed. It's uploading all those files into one nice zip file. Already halfway done. Now, the reason I didn't go to some of the other little tricks here is we'll park this in a minute because those tricks are on the database side. But what I want to do first is get done with the file manager side of this. So now it says it's uploaded, and there it is. I want to turn that into WP content, the actual file folder. So I'm going to uncompress that or extract it. I can right click or use the menu options up here, either way. Extract. It's already extracted. So very good. Let's see it. There it is. It says it's WP content 3, however. That's actually a good thing, because if we open it up, there's WP content. It's down inside of my zip, one level deep. That's not going to help us unless I move it. So they actually have a right click for move. So I'm going to do that as well. I'm going to get rid of all the junk and just put it in reasonsforfaith.com / public /public_HTML. I could get it out. Okay. So that's going to extract it, and I believe it's there. I'm going to refresh. Open that back up. It just showed 2. That was interesting.
Yeah, copied to a
I saw
copied
something really
its
interesting there
parent.
for a minute. But yeah, so that, but now it looks okay.
Oh, you're in you're in a different domain though. You got to be in quality 3.
Quality 3, thank you. Yeah, so where did it
Yeah,
go?
you've got 2 public HTMLs.
I wonder if when you put the copy to name, there was a blank after the L.
I believe you're right. I did actually mess that up and it put it somewhere else.
So it's probably down in the second public HTML there. If you go up, go to right above, right there.
Sure.
Right above reasons for faith. There. Yeah, there.
Yep, there
that's
she is.
her. There she is.
Okay, let's try moving that again. So it was interesting. It actually created another directory. So yeah, space, very fussy. I'm going to check this again here. So, okay, quality 3, reasonsforfaith.com / public HTML with no space. Move these all day, accept it, but okay, it looks like we got it. And I expand on the caret and it looks good. So I'll do a little cleanup here, get rid of this fella. And compress this, take another look at it. It looks, I got it, I got that silly folder now, which I want to get rid of. So the easiest way to make sure I got the right one is over here. Delete. All right, so cleaned up a little bit. Look at public HTML now. And there's our site. There's the files. I'm going to get rid of the zip file, which I don't need. But everything else belongs here. Okay, we've moved half the site over. It's sitting there waiting for us. Now, that file manager is pretty boring. Let's go to something a little more exciting. I'm going to go over to CPanel again and GoDaddy. And in the second section is Phpmyad. This is a really powerful tool. It's also very good at destroying things if you're not careful. So, you know how they always say with any change, always do your backup. And that's certainly true if you're going to do this kind of thing as well. Or you can actually do a backup right from Phpmyadmin of the database if you want to. And in fact, I'll use that for the migration. But we can play around here a little first. Now, there's a whole bunch of different databases here. That's because there's a whole bunch of different different installed applications. GoDaddy, to install, uses something called Installertron. I haven't seen Installertron on other hosts, so I don't know how widespread it is. I kind of like it because it kind of brings everything into one place. So here is quality.dmrvirtual.com, the site we're copying from. So you'll notice a few things that are going to cause us problems down the road during this migration, and I'm leaving them anyway. One is the version, it's an old version. We can go into the view and edit details here under Installertron and find out which of those 20 some odd files are the ones we want. So I'm waiting for it to sync up. It's reading the attributes for this particular website. This is essentially GoDaddy's way of registering a website. If you go through Installertron, it knows everything about the website and can look it up for you. So here I'm going to Files and Tables. What I want to see, by the way, it's also showing you the file layout for the website. Down here is the database section, and the database is DMR_photo_WP7. So using that knowledge, I can go back to, where's my, okay, so I think I have it open about Phpmyad. So the one I want out of this list is WP7. So I just simply click on it and it pops right up. So a few things you want to look at here is Phpmyadmin. As I say, it's a very powerful tool. You can do things right on the spot if you want to. There are also various tabs up here that are very useful. If you know any SQL and you want to do a search, maybe you want to link up two tables and look across them to find out how something looks to WordPress. If you get heavily into posts or pages and you want to see a page from WordPress's point of view, that's exactly what you have to do, because there's all sorts of metadata that's attached in this different table within the same database. These are all the various tables. And in SQL, you can link them up, join them together with a join statement, and tell it what index you want it to join with. And it'll create a super table out of your two tables or more that you join up. So in this case, let's take a look at one of the more interesting ones, WP users. This one is where one of the tricks are, because right here, I have my user login, and it says user pass or user password, but it's hashed. You'll never figure it out from that. It's encoded. So if you're not familiar with the term hash, basically it goes through an algorithm that makes basically spaghetti out of your whatever you put into the hash, but it's very well ordered spaghetti. You're never going to figure out, okay, it's a spaghetti, what the actual original was, but it's always going to generate the same hash when you run it. So WordPress knows this user password, even though you're not going to figure it out from here. But let's say I wanted to change the password. I can go in to this position right here. I can click on it and I can edit it. But if I did that, I could put in I could say test password or whatever I wanted over here, but that would be a very bad idea, because that would not work as a password. It has to be the hashed password. But I can also go in here. This is built in. So I can come over to my user pass And I'm going to wipe this out and say, I want test password like the other one, but I'm going to enter it as an MD5. MD5 is the hash algorithm. So when I enter this test password MD5, and then in any SQL, I have to tell it to go to actually execute it. So I'm going to hit go. That is, now you'll see that the hash has changed because I've got a different password in there. So that's one of the tricks that I'm going to show tonight, is if you get stuck, you don't know what the password is, you've lost your administrator password. But if you can go into the host, you can put in a totally new password for yourself or for somebody else. If somebody said they wanted a particular password and you just wanted to change it right here, you could do that. You could also create an additional one here, but that could get very tricky. I'll show you why. If I wanted to add a third user here, I could add one, but in doing so, I wouldn't show all of the other aspects of the user. There's a second table over here, user meta. So we have the user, it's just the base information, and then user meta, which is the metadata. Now, the reason they split it up this way is that, so for one login, there's certain things that you're always going to have one unique instance of it. You're always going to have one password and only one password. You're always going to have one email and only one email. So those are put in the main record. But if you look at the user meta, I just switched to that table. These are a number of things you put in when you're setting up a user. First name, last name, description, some other things that you probably don't even know are there. These also are added in, but the reason this is done this way is that you notice under this user ID, the user ID links up with the ID of the one I have under the main password table, the main user table. The KR Mathema, that first one, that's all user ID 1. So you can add to this meta as many records as you want to further define user ID number 1. And that all happens automatically in WordPress. So if you were to create a totally new ID manually, you'd have to also populate this table and add a bunch of records using all these key names and putting in a value for all of them. So that's what's happening under the hood. So probably about the only real trick here is changing a password to an existing ID.
We got a question from Nancy. Could you also change an email here?
The user email could change, yes, right here.
So you could take someone's account, say your admin, which happens sometimes, your admin user just leaves, or there's institutional turnover. You could just change the email to yourself and take control back.
Yeah, because if you do it through WordPress, it says a pending change and you have to get a verification email.
They might not answer.
Basically, you just change it. Say, sorry, I'm overriding you.
And that's totally happened to me, where the old admin left and just never ever answered their email again, and basically had to hack the site. Yeah,
you could just take over right here, put in your password that you want, and then add yourself in under another one. But yeah, you could just take it over more completely and change it to your email as well. It should work just fine. I don't know if I'll take the time to try that, but if you want to change the quick way and not go through that big screen that I showed you where I put in the MD5, if you click on it, this is all text, so I don't have to worry about that. I just click on it and I'm not doing anything other than text. I get an open window and I can erase things. change things. However, as soon as I hit enter or navigate off the screen, it's going to be live. I'll mess this up and show you. That's an illegal user email, but it should not know that. Okay, it just changed my email to something that doesn't exist. You got to have a dot something, but it doesn't have that check in here because I'm working right in the database and it was instant. So now I'm going to put it back. It will work again. That's the biggest pitfall of this, is that if you go in on the quick screen and you make a change on any of these fields, and then you navigate away or you hit enter, it's live. Good side of it is you can rapidly switch back and forth with your website, try out things. You can see instantly if what you did has a desired effect. Now, since I'm in here, I'm going to go back to the top of my database. This has all of their tables in here. What I want to do now at this point is make an export file, just like I had a file, a zip file for all of the WordPress files, the WordPress files within my content folder. I'm going to export all of these into a compressed file as well. Quick will work. I like custom because I like to check myself, and I'm also going to use a feature which may not be helpful, but I do it anyway because I want to be sure that I get rid of the old junk in there. So if I notice all of my tables are checked, that's good. The default, I want it to save to the default because it's going to use the same name as it exists in here. For my file, that works great for me. I don't think if I could change the name here if I wanted to. Nothing here I want to play with. Okay, but I am going to add a drop table just in case there's any junk in where it's going to. I want to drop it first. Now, there's a reason I won't drop everything, but this will just make sure. I like to throw it in there just to be sure that there isn't any duplicate information put in. The drop table is an SQL command to, if a particular table exists that it finds, just drop it. All right, I'm going to hit go, and it should be downloading. Pull this up here. Yeah, it's downloading the .SQL export file. So now I've got the WP content. So admit there. And I've got the MR photo, the SQL file, the database table. So basically, was there anything else? Do you remember, Claire, was there anything else that we wanted to show inside Phpmyad before we go to migrate?
I think the user editing is the main thing here. Yeah, if you're getting into like changing that serialized data, that gets really complicated. So let's not get into that.
Yeah. I'll leave that to the end if there's time, because there is other things you can do that are a little more complicated. So okay, we've got our export file. Now it's time to head back over. To whichever window I have for SiteGround. There we go. Okay, so I'm back on the main menu, always in Site Tools, because it's where everything is stored with SiteGround. So I'm going in under, you see, if I look through here, I don't see Phpmyad doesn't show up anywhere. So, say, where'd they hide it? Turns out they hid it over here. If I go to MySQL, I guess it figured that they didn't need to put it as a separate menu item. They threw it under MySQL. It really is not MySQL, but that's the way they did it. So I'm going to click on Phpmyad over here, and I have to click on it again. And finally it shows up. Now this one appears to work just the same as the GoDaddy version. I didn't notice any differences. The menu looks the same. Everything looks the same. Now, they're nice enough on theirs to show in parentheses which website this database belongs to. Otherwise, I would have had to go back, just like I did on GoDaddy, and look it up. But here I know that this is my database or my other site, my target site, the one I'm going to put it on. I remember in GoDaddy, we had WP underscore whatever. Well, they have HIR. That's because SiteGround throws its own prefixes into the table names. We're going to have to address that later on. But first thing I want to do is, now that I'm in this table, I'm going to import my new file that I just created a while ago. I don't think they have drag and drop here. I'll try. Oh, they do. Can I just drag that from my file directory at the bottom of the screen there, the save files? I'm just dropping it in here. And there it goes. Okay, it's loaded anyway. Did it actually run it? I didn't do it this way before. Okay, I don't know if it worked. I'll check it out. Let's take a look. Yeah, that did it. That was a quick and dirty method. But all these HIRs are still there, so I'm going to manually get rid of it. My drop table did not get rid of them because they're a different prefix.
So if the prefix here had been WP underscore, the same as it was in GoDaddy,
It would have
the drop statement would have found that you already had a WP post, for example, and
Mhm.
deleted it before putting in the new one. But
Yes.
because it's a different prefix, it didn't do that. Okay.
Exactly. I'm virtually certain that's what happened here. All right, so now with selected, I have to, everybody has their own way of doing things, so I have to find this option. So with selected, I want to drop. Boom, this is the SQL tape, the statement that it ran. If you know SQL, you can see it just lined up all of your tables and did a drop. So yes, I want to do the following query. Boom, there they are, they're gone. I could have actually typed in that query if I wanted to, but would have done the same thing. I never figured out how the term query, which you would think is asking a question, what a query normally means, is an action statement, but in SQL it is. So they do everything by queries, and queries is actually commands in some cases, like this one. So now we have our table set up just the same as before. If I go into, for instance, WP users, I should see here are my two IDs, just like I looked at when I was in GoDaddy. And there is the new user password that I set up as well, since I did that while I was still under GoDaddy. Okay, so we have the major components. We have our WP contents onto an already created, already installed SiteGround site. Smart people are coming in. It's amazing. Probably should mention this is recorded, and those that come in late can still access the recording later. Okay, so we do have all of the elements, but I can guarantee you that the website is not ready to work yet. And, let's pull it up here. Here's our bird, our website. If I click this, it did change, and there's a reason it changed. If we think this through, what it's trying to do is it thinks we've got a totally blank WordPress installation. Why does it think that? Even though I put a new database in there, it doesn't know it's there. So WordPress says there's no database here. And I guess I have to establish a new one. I don't want to do that. I'll silence that. Okay.
Is that possibly, you've got a, you copy tables into the database on SiteGround, but the database name is going to be different. So you have to go back to your WP config file.
You're on definitely on the right track here. So I'm going to come back in here. And yeah, there's actually two places. So here's my SiteGround. I gotta be sure I'm in the right SiteGround. Phpmyad under SiteGround. And look up my options table. Take a look here. And this actually is kind of important if you did do a migration with a tool and for some reason it didn't change these. It doesn't appear to work because when WordPress sees the site URL and the home value, it essentially redirects. These will cause a redirect because they it looks to this somewhere in the WordPress stack. It will see these and say, oh, I'm supposed to be over here. So what I need to do is change these. Now, the site I'm changing it to is, I'll do this manually because cut and paste is kind of iffy over here. quality3.reasonsforfaith.com. And do the same thing over here. One change, one row affected, that's already live. Okay, let's do the same over here. All right, that looks spelled correctly. Looks like it's good to go. Now, in this table, could there be others that have the wrong information as well? There might. This site is so simple that it just has the basic WordPress stuff in there. It doesn't have other fields. But a more complicated site, if you're migrating, could. I actually had one where there was a bird field that I had to change. So I just opened it up. So show 500 records. I'm just going to scan down here and see if I see anything else. Yeah, it looks. Oh, this is interesting. Transient ET, that's elegant themes, that's Divi. This one's going to have, it's going to a directory with a setup with GoDaddy. So there are going to be some problems here. But let's see what we've got. I want to go back over here and I want to refresh this. It's taking its own sweet time now. It's rather interesting because this is a small website. Do it again, just to be sure. Okay, I'm staring at the problem here. It's a subdirectory. I
You
can't
skipped your WP config database prefix.
Yeah, I'm just going to go right into try to go into the main website, which I know it's not ready to do yet. Yeah, I was trying to call up the subpage that does this installation. I want to do that. All right, here we go. Okay, so it still came back here, so there's still something missing, which is not surprising. So I'm going to go back here.
Database prefix in WP config.
Thank you. Thank you. Yes, that is correct. So there's a couple things, but that is definitely one of them. That's a big one. So let's go back to File Manager now. Come over here. So basically the way WordPress works is it starts from the files, starts with very specific files actually, and reads the stack, walks its way through. And one of the first files it looks at is how do I connect to my database? So I need to come over to this and edit it. because it doesn't really know how to get to the database yet. So now I'm in the editor. It switched over to the editor when I told it to edit. That's idiosyncrasies of SiteGrounds rather than the more standard version. So now down here, all the way down on line 71, table prefix is wrong. It was WP, not HIR. So it's still looking for tables that do not exist. So in this one, I have to find the save button, which is a picture, of course. Save that. And now I've got a verification my WP config has changed. So let's see what happens this time. And I'm going to remember to get rid of this suffix. Okay. All right. This looks a whole lot better. It's still got a few goofy things. Interesting. Claire will know, we went through this yesterday, and there were a couple other things that I was expecting to show up, but it appears to have taken it now. We have successfully migrated. I will show you the couple of things that we might need to worry about, but this is the site. You'll see now it's under the new URL, quality3.reasonsforfaith.com. So there we go. Now I'm not sure. Let's see if everything still works. Yeah, very good. Okay. Now I'll go back and show you what I was worried might happen and didn't happen. Let's dump that here. Dump that screen. That screen. Okay, one of the things that can happen is, you know how in the code you have, if you need to change something that happens all throughout your website, you can use better search and replace or some other search and replace mechanism. You can do the same thing here, and there are two ways to do it. I want to find my SiteGround. There we go. Okay. One way to do it is right in SiteGround's menu. So I can go over to devs. I think it was devs. I'm not sure. Oh no, it's under WordPress. Okay. So search and replace. Make sure I've got the right one. It's quality 3. I can give it a search string, and I could say the old one was quality in the photo, and the new one quality 3. Or I won't continue this one because that not every host will have this feature. So let's say we didn't have it. I can go back over to my installation, sign into my login panel. Now we got this yesterday too. Remember when I showed you under GoDaddy, the version of the website was 5.5.2, it wasn't up to date. So it's telling me this WordPress database is an old version, so do an update. Very fast, done. Okay, now that gets us into the dashboard. So the other way we could do this, now that I'm in the dashboard successfully, let's say that the website isn't fully working yet. I could go in and add my better search and replace, and this is a good idea anyway, to do it one way or the other, because if you don't, you might have a page that has a hard reference to the old site. But you won't invoke that under Phpmyad, so that's why you can get away with this. All right, so I activate this plugin, and then under tools, I can use it since it's there and ready to go. So I don't know if you've used this tool before, but if you haven't, I definitely recommend it for this sort of thing. It is great. It'll save you from a lot of headaches. Basically, you just anywhere in your website that it says something, if you want to change it globally through your website, or you have a link throughout your website, or anything you can think of practically, that's anywhere it is, doesn't matter. This will change it for you all across the database. So what I'm going to do is put in my put this in manually. All right. Now with this tool, I have to highlight the databases I want to do. So that's ready. And I'm going to do this first as a dry run. I want to see how many changes it comes up with. If it comes up with 0, I did something wrong. Okay, it shows 12 tables were searched and 0 changes were made. So let's see, quality in dmrphoto.com. Let's see, what time? 7:38. I'm not going to troubleshoot this because that's what you would do to make the change, but I probably typed in something wrong. I didn't have the original site quite right. But this will change all occurrences that it finds throughout the entire database. That is one thing that can go wrong with the manual migration, that you don't have everything changed over.
I'd like to share a cautionary tale of a time that I thought I was fixing all the links in a migrated site, and I entered just the domain name, like intersite.com. And it not only changed all the links, it also changed every user's email address, and the client couldn't log in. So be careful to format your search string in a way that it's only getting links and not email addresses as well.
And doing the dry run, then it'll show you what it's changing. That'll give you a clue. If it has a bunch of changes you don't expect it to have, that's a clue that maybe it's not doing what you wanted. In this case, it's a clue too, because I didn't get any changes listed, so I typed something wrong. But that's what I want to do.
One thing you can do to kind of catch that is instead of just doing the update, you start with a select and you get the selection criteria, and then you just look at the rows. You can just quickly scan through the rows that are returned and see if it looks legitimate or not. So, or alternatively, if you've got something like XAMPP installed, you can install the database locally. And then just run the SQL command straight up against the database and see what happens, so that you're, not actually working against the live version.
I think I see what my problem is. Schema virtual. Yeah, you're absolutely right. Okay, yeah, I said DMR photo. That's actually the company. I had that in my mind, but unfortunately that's not what they're looking for. So I will run this again as a dry run. There we go, 97 cells found. And you were suggesting click here for more details. Is that where you would look? If I see this now, I can see changes found and which tables they were found in.
Can you click on those numbers?
I believe you can, yes. If you have the pro version.
Oh. That's how they get you.
Yes, if you have the pro version, absolutely you can. Upgrade to view details. I'm sure I'll get to some advertisement if I do that. So anyway, yeah, I've gone as far as the free version is going to take me. Okay, the other thing that I should mention is that if you're in SiteGround, you have a nice freebie here. I can go into security. Ssl Manager. I'm not trying to sell SiteGround, but this is really a nice perk for them. free SSL. Basically, you can go in and say, all right, here's quality 3. It's a test site. I don't care. I got these to burn. So I'm going to say, let's encrypt. Get it. And in a minute or so, it does take a minute or two. But in a minute or two, it will give me my HTTPS. And I'll have a secure website relative. Which is really nice if you build a website, and even if you're in a wireframe mode, show them, hey, it's secure. It should be impressive. I think it takes a while because it has to go out to the registry, which they don't own. Let's encrypt wildcard is great because you can just blanket an entire domain up to, I think, 5. Okay, so it's got that. And then I could do an HTTPS enforce if I want to make sure it always goes to secure version. There we go. So if I do in, it's not secure yet. That's a propagation time. It will be secure, but it hasn't figured that out yet across the World Wide Web. One thing I can do to possibly speed that up in SiteGround again. They love caching. So I can go into their dynamic cache and flush the cache for them. That will speed up the process. Maybe not enough. Well, let's try it anyway. Yeah, there we go. Okay, now we're secure. That was it. So I have migrated the site and updated the database, got everything in good shape here, and it's even got SSL. It's still got, let's see if my test password worked now. Should be test. Oops. Do this so I can see it. That's the one that I MD5 hashed in. Here we go. Are all set. So that was everything I wanted to show you. So just open it up to questions. Anything you'd like to explore further?
Can you demonstrate how you would disable all plugins if you did not have access to the admin panel?
Yes. There are a couple of ways.
So this is like the site, something's wrong with the site, but you can't log in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, in the database, you can do that. You could actually wipe out, you could go to WP, you could go to the files and actually erase the whole directory for those. Or actually, yeah, you could have a lot of fun with that. You could go into File Manager and you could rename the those plugins. Then it will probably get upset with you because the database says they're there, but they're not. It might complain, but it would get you, it would solve the problem. Or you could go into your database. I have to come back in here now. I've closed that apparently. So MySQL, Phpmyad. Now I'm going to have to cheat because I remember, Claire, you mentioned that, and I did look up which table it's in. So rather than go nosing around here, it might be in the options table, but I'll try it. Okay, so I want to expand so I can show more rows. Let's see if I find it by kind of wandering through here. Active plugins. These are your active plugins. Now, here's the trick. If you edit this, how are you going to put it back? What I would do, come over here to edit, do the big screen. Here we go. You can see the whole thing now. These are all your plugins. I'm going to take this and just do a copy. Actually, I'll go ahead and do a cut too. Okay. Now on this screen, to make it live, I have to hit go. Okay, so on that one, I forget what line it's on now. Active plugins.
You have to go up.
Up. I went
Yeah.
too far. Active plugins. Here we go. So it's blank. Now this is instant. So let's go play with this thing. All right. Install plugins. Activate, activate. Activate, 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 activate. So they're not there. If I go into my front end, yeah, it doesn't look terribly good, but didn't activate the thing. So Divi is still running. There's no plugins. All right, so all of your plugins are showing. You can activate them manually, and if I did, they would show back up in the list. Or I can go into here again. Where was that? Active plugins. I'll go into my edit so I get the full window. Notice how it's changed the value. It's got an A0, friend, nothing, null. This is a special shorthand multi-dimensional array nomenclature. So it's saying this is an array with 0 elements. And the contents of those elements are nothing. So I'm going to replace that with my old one. It's showing an array with 4, array size 4, with all these elements. And there's 4, I think there were 4 plugins. So I'm going to hit go on this. And there's the SQL I just executed. Come back to my website and refresh the screen because, okay, deactivate on this one, this one, this one, and this one. That's 4. 2 of them I didn't have activated in the first place that went on the list. So that array of 4 were these 4, which are now giving me the option to deactivate. So yes, that is the fairly easy way, if you're careful, that you can deactivate all your plugins without even touching the website if you want. And it's a great debugging tool. You can also change your active theme. You can play around with a bunch of stuff in here. Pretty much anything that's in here, all the settings are in there somewhere in the database. You go into all these settings here. As we know, we could change the administration email. In fact, that might be fun because you know what a hassle it is to do it through here. If I go back to my tools, find here. That's WP users. Come into my database, come into this here. And let's say I'll change this to a different email. Come on. It's hard to use this screen. I like the big screen, but it's this is a quick and dirty screen. So this actually is a real email. And I'm changing it now. THI, everything systems. And then go back over to the site. Wrong one. Here we go. Okay. I haven't refreshed this yet, so let's refresh it. I'm not seeing it. Did I actually change it successfully? Maybe I didn't. Oh, I probably didn't hit go. Let me check that again. I changed it in the wrong place. My fault. Getting a little, running down a little bit, getting tired. Okay. WP options. Here we go. I should have changed it here. So admin email. Let's try that again. One row affected. If I've got the right place, there it is. Instant change. I didn't have to go through verification process or any of that stuff. It's done. Oh, that was rather handy. I could even change a user into a different type of user if I wanted to downgrade them. Pretty much anything that you see on any of these screens is in the database somewhere. Now, if I just show you how the database changes, let's say, just for grins, let's thought of this. Okay, here's our table. And here are the various, or I should say, there's a database and here are the tables in here. These are mostly standard tables. Not too much in here is new. Well, let's say that on my site now, I want to add something significant. I'm going to go to my plugins and I'm going to add Woocommerce. Woocommerce really does a number on your website. So let me put here actually. So I'm going to install that. Okay. Woocommerce is now installed. What did that do to me? Let's go back to take another look. That's a much larger set of tables than I just had. It starts right here and keeps going. Look at all those tables. Woocommerce is a fun time. They use a similar technique. Actually, it is the technique that are used for creating posts, and they're the brilliant people at I think it's Delicious Brains that does this as well. Anyway, they are using a rather wild process of going through and setting up fake posts that aren't really posts and using that to create all the transactions in WooCommerce. So you have all these new tables that have been set up. I don't even know what half of them do. The API keys, apparently there aren't any. A lot of these seem blank. They just seem to load them and use them later. So you've got basically a standard set of tables that comes with WordPress. And I can tell you what to do in those because it's going to be in any installation. But when you start adding plugins, you're going to add a bunch of stuff to the database. And if you know what you're doing, you can really mess around with those plugins as well, like WooCommerce. And also, if you're careful not to change anything, you can take a look and see what WooCommerce or anything else is actually doing to you. Because the database being changed will update as you put in new records or new orders or whatever it is, and you can see how they're laying it down. You can even go into somebody's order and change their name or something, which I wouldn't suggest. But you have loads of fun with this. So have I bored everybody or anything else you want us to try to look at?
This was a really good demo. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that.
Congratulations on the successful live demo, because that's not easy to do.
I think you're the first one.
Ever.
I've never
don't
had
know.
one.
I like it in one way because I'm so used to doing Zoom meetings. Just like, oh, it's just another Zoom meeting. You think the time I tried to present in the classroom at the college, I had trouble with the projector and I was in the way of what I was trying to show. And it's like,
That's hardware. That's hardware problems. It's
Yeah.
different.
oh, one more thing I will say, I don't have one to demo, but back in the days when I had my GoDaddy account hacked and a whole bunch of files, a whole bunch of sites were affected. One thing I had to do before I went into WordPress, actually WordPress didn't, I still needed to do this because WordPress didn't solve it all. I had to go into File Manager and find some of the files that shouldn't be there. If you look up on just Google something about the standard WordPress files that are supposed to be there.
Oh, shoot.
I think he froze.
Yeah, you froze, Ken.
As I recall, there used to be quite a concern with people with installing free WordPress themes that they pull off the website. And you can put MIME text in those, which to us is non-readable. But that was a pathway that bad themes would use to get into your WordPress. I don't know whether or not that is still a problem, but it certainly does seem to have kind of fallen back somewhat from where it used to be.
Are you hearing me coming through this iPad?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Claire was worried about her computer going down with a thunderstorm or something. And my computer just decided to spontaneously reboot, no thunderstorm, anything, but boom. So I'm glad I had the backup here. I had this sitting here so I could see what I was doing. And now I had to bring it up. So you're probably host now, Claire, I think.
Oh, I guess so.
Sorry, everyone. I have another Zoom to go to. It was great being here. Ken, loved your presentation. Thank you very much. Hope to see you all next time.
Yeah, thanks
So
for coming, Jim.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Did
That's-
anybody, I'm sorry, did anybody watch the WordCamp US last week? Was it last week already? There was
Got it.
there was a presentation of a lady, I'm trying to find her name, who was accessing the back end of WordPress through WP-CLI using the command line.
oh yeah.
Okay.
And like changing what user roles, you know, even though you have like an admin user role, she could shut down certain parts of the dashboard through the WP-CLI.
Cool.
It was amazing.
Was she using, was she sending through the WordPress API or was she actually changing?
No,
the
she
data?
was going through the SSH.
Okay.
Yeah. So I had a friend that went, and I told him through Slack to tell her she had done a really good job on her presentation, but I don't think he did.
Yeah.
My friend doesn't like code at all. CSS gives him the hives.
Yeah, Claire, I
Some-
think when we were live, I think I did a quick WP-CLI demo or something
Yeah.
along with Duplicator, which is a tool that
Right.
I like. So I think at different times. So
Right. I remember
Wow.
that was a few years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's not something that I've used a lot, but that sort of, you know, sort of a back door can be tremendously useful when your site's having problems and you can't load or access the, the main web interface.
One to Nancy's point, and even with Ken, with Nancy's point of, using SSH, having that available. So my background was as a Unix system admin since the 1980s. So having that available to be able to get in when you need it, and if it's already set up, can be handy, because there's times I haven't had it set up, and then of course needed to do that, or and had to mess around with that. But so if you're used to going in the back end and doing VI and all that, and working on the files directly, that can be handy. But it can also be, there's nice tools now that make things simpler, but sometimes it can be good to go back to the basics if you know how.
Absolutely, because
Yes.
they don't break, or if they do break, they break for other reasons or in different ways sometimes.
Yeah, and
Okay,
sometimes if
fine.
you're used to doing things real quick, like with an editor, like, you could just do a quick search and replace in VI or something and be able to just really quickly go, if you're quick with that. And again, it's having a variety of tools in the toolbox that you can access depending on what you need to do at the time.
So you could
Oh,
disable or activate and deactivate plugins via WP CLI, or
Mhm.
switch
Yeah.
themes even.
you could,
Cool.
Yeah.
where there's,
Even
and I only
update.
touched on it. Yeah, I really just
Mhm.
touched on it, but I mean, just having, again, it's another way to access, and then you have a variety of ways where you can do things, depending on what it is you're looking to do, so.
Yeah, you do
Yeah,
need
I've
to,
had
you need to
clients-
know Unix.
Yeah, it's a good thing to know about, because like, if you've worked on a website for a client and they go off and do their own thing and they come back to you like 2 years later and say, I can't get in, help. But they don't remember their username, they don't remember their password, not even into the hosting account. But if you still have some of your information from them, how to get into their, through SSH, you can change all that and you can get them back in, or totally mess them up if you wanted to.
I've had clients that have 2-factor set up on their hosting,
Mhm.
and they say, "Oh, just let me know. I'll send you by email." It's like, I have 4 minutes.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
just won't work.
Terrible.
So yeah, having a CLI and or to be able to get in through SFTP
Mhm.
and things is pretty handy.
Yeah, there's actually quite a bit too, as another tool where you can do with SFTP, where you can often have access to the file system and be able to manipulate things. And, so that you can do it and not everyone else can do it, but similar kind of things is what we saw tonight.
Right.
Might be
It's
time
always good
for
to have multiple
another-
ways.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be a great subject for a future presentation, because it's been it's been a few years since we touched on some of these topics, and there's been updates and there's new members and everything. It might be.
Oh, really?
That'd be nice
There's
to
plenty of
revisit.
So Paul,
topics.
you're up for next month then, right?
Right.
Well, actually, it brings up a question you mentioned on going back to live, is that when is the schedule for that? And then also, will they be hybrid or in person only, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera? So.
I'm aiming for, it's not final, still have to get the invoice approved and the venue costs paid for. I'm gonna actually stop recording, so at this point.
Oh,
Right.
yeah.
Sorry, just a minute. Let me
Or you can always trim.